Hey y'all, welcome to my channel, Nothing Edited. What I'm wanting to show y'all today is something that my grandmother used to call a depression meal. Or, because my grandmother lived through the Depression in World War II. And these are just actual things she used to cook. Very minimum, just to feed the family. What's in this pot right here is some bacon grease. They always saved their bacon grease. Always, always. There's one onion coming in. Let me get that in there. Bacon grease was used a lot of times. Hog lard, rendered hog lard was used back in them days because that's what they had, what they could cook with. That is 2 potatoes. And when I'm saying bare minimum, I'm meaning bare minimum. When you were doing depression meals back then. And my grandmother used to cook this when I was a kid. So what I'm basically going to be doing is getting these potatoes and onions in here, kind of get them cooked down a little bit. And the next step, I'll add the next ingredient for this depression meal. So I'm going to let this cook a little bit, y'all, and I'll bring y'all back. Okay, y'all. The onions have wilted a little bit. The potatoes have browned a little bit. Now we're going in with the seasonings, the exact seasonings that my grandmother used. Salt. And pepper. That was what went into this recipe as far as seasoning stuff. Now my grandparents, back when World War II, Depression, all this stuff going on, they bought 5 acres, started out with 5 acres of property and built a shack. At that time, they paid 25 cents per acre. They grew everything that they had. Now in the beginning, my grandparents, I'm coming in with the cabbage, y'all. They didn't have children in the very beginning. They did eventually, have 5 children. My mother being one of them. Anyway, my grandfather had brothers. So the brothers stayed there with them. By the grace of God, all the brothers and my grandfather happened to have jobs at Standard Oil, what we now know as Exxon. They all had, and that was on Scenic Highway there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Although my grandparents lived out in the Zachary area. And they worked different shift work, coming in with more pepper, y'all. So either my grandfather or my uncle, they would always sit up at night. One of them would sit up at night to guard the garden because those were hard times. People were starving to death and people would come in and steal the food that you were raising. They were starving, so of course they were doing that. And my grandfather always had a couple of cows. My grandma and my grandfather had a couple of cows. And as long as they had a cow a heifer cow that had just given birth or something, and generating milk, everything was good. And they could have milk, and they could have cream, they could have butter, and make different things with that. Sometimes my grandmother would use butter but in this recipe, but most times it was the bacon grease as I showed you. I just added a little bit of water. I'm going to put the lid on this and let this cook down. But anyway, this was one of the meals that they made constantly. And they didn't always have meat. Yes, I just told you that they had cattle. They used the cattle for other food sources. My grandmother told me they would hunt squirrels, rabbit. Occasionally they'd luck out and get a deer. But anyway, I'm going to put the lid on this. I'm going to let this cook down. And this is an actual depression meal. 0 meat in it. But it has packed full of flavor due to the using the bacon grease. Okay, y'all, there you go. That's basically the Depression meal, the World War II meal that my grandmother used to cook all the time. The other thing, getting back to their homestead, I'm going to call it a homestead that they had, they raised chickens, and, you know, they would keep one rooster on hand. The other roosters, well, of course, they would turn into chicken and dumplings, chicken noodle soup. You're not going to fry a rooster. The hens, when they quit laying, that would be a holiday meal. My grandmother used to tell me that baked hens were a holiday meal. And that's, you know, what they would have. As time went on, as I said, my grandparents had 5 children. And the place ended up being a 400-acre working cattle ranch. Although my grandfather still had that working cattle ranch, he also still worked at Standard Oil. As of 5 years ago, the Corps of Engineers come through and decided that they would, they bought the property from our family due to the fact that they want to make a canal through there. So anything that was ever there, the pear trees, the pecan trees, the plum trees, the blackberry bush, everything we ever knew, the barns, the houses, because eventually my grandparents ended up building a nice, a beautiful brick home, and, you know, everything turned out, you know, well, I'll say hunky-dory for them. But now we don't own the property anymore. The Corps of Engineers come through, and it's gone. And the reason they bought it was due to the flood that they had, the big flood in Louisiana. So they're using it to divert the water to keep the flooding down in Louisiana. And so just remember your forefathers, your grandparents, what they actually went through, the foods they ate, and everything. Oh, and with this meal, my grandmother told me that she always used to make hot water cornbread because it was so easy to make and use very minimal ingredients, which would be a cup of cornmeal, a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of sugar, like a tablespoon of melted bacon grease, and then you poured boiling water in it and you stirred it up, and you would form that real fast into patties. And of course you would use a cup or so of either rendered hog lard or bacon grease to fry those up. So that was their meal to keep their bellies full. That was the whole purpose of it, was just keeping their bellies full. Was it, you know, healthy? You know, probably not. You know, but you know what? It's what it was. And the reason I'm doing this is because I used to do a lot of what-if videos. This is a heck of a what-if video. If you had a large head of cabbage and, you know, some potatoes and stuff, you could still feed your family, and today you would probably add meat to it. But we're starting to cook with fewer ingredients and stuff nowadays, simply because of the cost of food. The cost of living is astronomical right now. So, y'all, if y'all have a depression meal that y'all cook, I'd love to see it. Or if you already have it, the video out, please drop me a link. I'd love to watch it. I've always been fascinated with this sort of stuff. I may do a few more depression meals. I don't know. You know, it's all in a matter of time. Now, I have seen people do the hot water cornbread where they mix it up and it's real soupy like a pancake mix and ladle it off. That is not traditional hot water cornbread. Don't let somebody tell you that's how it is. Go look on YouTube. You will see the actual formation of them, into patties. So, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and by all means, leave a comment. This is nothing edited. I'm out. I'm sorry I was so long-winded, but I wanted to tell a little bit of history with my family and the purpose of doing this meal. Y'all do something nice to somebody today.